This is the Panavia Tornado. During the Gulf War, this versatile multi-role aircraft flew with Britain's Royal Air Force, the Royal Saudi Air Force, and the Italian Air Force. Tornadoes were assigned some of the most dangerous missions of the war, attacking heavily defended airfields in Iraq and occupied Kuwait. Tornado missions required pilots to fly daring, low-level, high-speed attacks hundreds of miles behind enemy lines. The assignment was dangerous, and some tornado pilots never returned. In 1972, the British Aircraft Corporation joined forces with West Germany's Messerschmitt-Völkel-Blum and Air Italia to form the Panavia Consortium. Together, the top aerospace technicians of the three countries created a two-seat variable geometry airframe adaptable to nearly every combat mission. Panavia fitted their new jet with a full complement of computerized systems. A powerful radar was installed in a high-level interceptor version of the Tornado. A navigation and attack computer allows the plane to fly as a deep interdiction fighter-bomber. The Tornado's twin engines and swing wings give it power and flexibility. The basic airframe was deliberately designed to be adapted to different roles, much like the U.S. Navy's multi-purpose A-6. The Tornado F-3 variant is an air superiority interceptor, while the Tornado GR1 is an all-weather bomber. The GR1 can fly at 600 miles per hour, 200 feet above the ground. But standard Tornadoes aren't equipped with laser target designators, essential equipment for dropping precision bombs. A new version of the Tornado fitted with a laser designator was rushed into service during the Gulf War. It flew alongside an equally new variant, the Tornado GR1A. The GR1A is an all-weather reconnaissance plane that was used extensively to hunt for Scud missile sites.
This is an electronic countermeasures EW jamming pod designed to confuse enemy hostile radars. And then further to the right, this is not a bomb. This is in fact a 2,250-litre fuel tank, which will extend our range, and we carry two of these. Moving on to the fuselage of the aircraft, of the Tornado GR1A, the difference between a GR1 and a GR1A is that there are no guns mounted on this aeroplane. Instead, we have internally mounted infrared reconnaissance equipment, and immediately visual is one of the sideways looking infrared sensor windows here, and there is one on the right-hand side as well. And within this fairing, underneath the fuselage, is a window which would open, which is an infrared line scanner, which will give us complete 180 degrees horizon-to-horizon coverage.
Britain's Royal Air Force is the principal operator of the airplane. But at one time or another, virtually all Tornado pilots have flown together during NATO training missions. Generally, these missions involve Tornado F-3s flying combat air patrol, while Tornado GR1s practice low-level, high-speed strikes. But when the Gulf War erupted, GR1 pilots had to adapt quickly to a dangerous new environment. One thing that helped ease the learning curve was the close-knit relationship of Tornado crews. Like the teams who fly F-111s, Tornado pilots and bombardier navigators develop bonds that help them surmount daunting obstacles. When Kuwait was overrun by Iraq, Tornado pilots and the rest of the British Expeditionary Force found themselves facing the greatest challenge of their careers. They were deployed to the Gulf on August 9, 1990, less than a week after the invasion. Eventually, 25,000 British soldiers were sent to the war zone. Britain's Royal Air Force contributed 135 aircraft, including 18 Tornado F-3 fighters, 12 Buccaneer bombers, 12 Jaguar fighter bombers, and 46 Tornado GR1 attack and reconnaissance planes. During the Gulf War, the dozen RAF Jaguars flew 617 sorties, flying combat air patrol and bombing missions. To camouflage their aircraft in the new battleground, the RAF changed the color of their planes from European green to desert pink. This also helped differentiate British Tornadoes from the Saudi and Italian models that flew during the Gulf War. Ultimately, 31 nations deployed armed forces in the Gulf. In the build-up before the war, some predicted that the coalition would never hold together. But the quick establishment of a central leadership kept anarchy at bay. General H. Norman Schwarzkopf became commander of all forces. General Charles Horner led the coalition air campaign.
It's already been struck by 117. This is a team effort. The second aircraft comes through.
The idea of having one air boss in charge of air operations in the war was new insofar as implemented in this war, but it's been around for some time. In fact, it's been fundamental to the concepts for employment of air in Southwest Asia. We've trained this way for years.
I arrived in the Gulf 2 days before the war started. Had I not had training with Americans using the procedures that we actually adopted during the Gulf War, it would have been very difficult at such short notice to have achieved the mission and to have achieved it so well.
Well, it shouldn't surprise anyone to find that the British and the U.S. Fighter squadrons are very similar, and their approach toward warfighting is very similar. But that's true of the majority of the members of the coalition. We trained together, and we practiced together, so to speak, and so when it came time to fight the war together, it was the same thing that we had spent a lot of years getting ready to do, and we were able to do that. And so whether it was the British, or whether it was the Saudis, or whether it was the UAE, or whether it was the French, there was a cohesiveness there that permitted us to do what we thought we could do without any deference to who was doing it. And that's the important thing.
British forces were scattered across Saudi Arabia. They operated out of an airport parking lot in Tehran and bases in Riyadh, Tabuk, and Bahrain. The British found themselves living in desert tent cities and finished barracks. It all depended on the luck of the draw. Wherever they were, they worked alongside the other members of the multinational force. This included some 425,000 Americans and 137,000 troops from Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain, as well as 7,000 troops who escaped from Kuwait after the Iraqi invasion. Pakistan, Czechoslovakia, Canada, Bangladesh, Syria, Argentina, Senegal, and Sierra Leone also sent in men, planes, and ships. Italy sent in 10 of its Tornadoes to fly air superiority missions. Altogether, more than 695,000 soldiers from around the globe were sent against the Iraqi army, which numbered close to 1 million. The Royal Saudi Air Force flew both Tornado interceptors and bombers. Mirage F-1s were flown by both friends and foes. F-1s from Qatar joined F-1s from the Free Kuwait Air Force, which flew with the Saudis.
I read stories about how the Saudis were not going to perform well. They performed superbly. I remember one tornado mission, the guy had to cut a runway. He put every one of his bombs right down the center line of the runway. Certainly the example where the two Mirages were coming towards the oil fields and the Saudi flight lead rolled out right behind them. AWACS gave them a vector. So the idea that one kind of Air Force is not as good as another Air Force is really not true. You have great individuals in every Air Force, and you have guys that have a little trouble getting up to speed. That's true of all Air Forces. The key on how well an Air Force performs is how well your intelligence is and how well your command and control works. In this case, I think we had superb support from both.
We will return in a moment to Weekday Wings on the Discovery.
Britain's Tornado GR1s flew low-level bombing missions deep in Iraqi territory, and they took the heaviest losses of all coalition aircraft. The Tornado force represented just 4% of Allied air strength, but it suffered 26% of the casualties.
The problem was that the Iraqis had an awful lot of AAA guns to defend their airfields, and at night, to see this solid wall of tracer go up was something that no one had ever really experienced before, and it's very frightening and very distracting. Although it probably wasn't that effective, it certainly tends to take your eye off the ball.
Oh, come on, what fucking heading have I got here? Don't stop.
Lincoln and Stanford Buckeye, buckets behind you.
The Tornado suffered a higher rate of losses than some of the other aeroplanes, partially due to the nature of some of the sorties we were flying, and also we had a fair degree of bad luck as well. If you haven't got luck with you, then obviously you're not going to survive.
Well done, Benny. Toss them all in? Yeah. Excellent. Well done. Yeah, make a big bang. Yes. To say the least. File at it.
There are 20 to 25 of us killed every year in normal training accidents, and to be honest, the loss rate was no more than we would normally experience in peacetime, especially considering the amount of flying and the type of flying that was being done. Very low level, very demanding training indeed during the build-up to the war. So losing friends is something that's not new. It's something that we are used to. I mean, it never comes very easy, but it's something that's not that unusual.
5 Tornado pilots were killed in action. Another 7 were captured by the Iraqis and held as prisoners of war. Fortunately, the war was short. By March 1991, all Allied POWs were released to friendly forces. Another problem facing the RAF and all coalition pilots was the unusually poor weather in the Middle East. As any pilot will attest, things can get tricky when you're flying at night.
The weather was not beautiful desert, clear blue sky weather. There were a number of thunderstorms and with great turbulence. Now, because this aeroplane is only a very small aeroplane, and it only carries a limited amount of fuel, all our operations involved air-to-air refueling with one of our tanker aircraft. On some nights we were actually tanking in very, very nasty thunderstorm and electronic storm weathers, where the airplanes were being buffeted around quite significantly, and all the pilots to a man did extremely well and to be able to make contact with the tanker aircraft and take the fuel.
But the major safety threat was still Iraq's surface-to-air missiles and anti-aircraft guns. So after losing 5 planes in the first week, Tornadoes were sent to higher, safer altitudes. The RAF claimed this was done not because of the high loss rate, but because air superiority had been so quickly achieved that Tornadoes no longer needed to bomb airstrips. But the fact remains that although the Tornado is a versatile airframe, it was not designed for medium-level bombing, nor had its crews ever trained for that mission.
3, 2, 1. Should see an impact soon. Impact is moving up the runway.
Dropping laser-guided bombs from medium altitudes was new to GR1 pilots, who specialized in delivering their unguided JP-233 runway denial munitions from treetop level. But laser-guided bombs were also capable of blowing holes in Iraqi airstrips. However, JP-233s create a much wider circle of destruction. They carry 30 concrete cratering bomblets and 215 delayed fuse mines, making airstrip repair a hazardous enterprise. Switching to laser-guided bombs cut down Tornado losses, but RAF pilots still praise the destructive power of the JP-233.
Impact 1, 2, 3.
The Tornado was always going to be used for low-level attacks against the airfield using the JP-233. That is such a specialized weapon, only the Tornado can drop it. It was always going to be used for that. And there's no way you can drop that weapon from medium level. So the path was clear. We had to do that.
Bloody marvelous. You little piece.
5 tornadoes were lost during low-level attacks on Iraqi air bases. But although the bombers were sent to higher levels, the 6 reconnaissance tornadoes continued to fly high-speed, low-level missions for the duration of the war, without a single loss.
Got the bridge.
There's no such thing as a clean war. You can't just take out the targets without killing people, or killing innocent people, if you like. But you can go a long way towards it by using guided weapons. But they're expensive, very expensive. So you have to trade one against the other.
When ceasefire was called on March 3rd, the RAF had flown over 6,100 sorties, the largest number flown by any nation except the United States. The 5 tiled tornadoes flew 72 successful sorties in 17 days. The 6 GR1A recon tornadoes flew 128 night sorties, and the 46 British GR1s in the Gulf flew over 1,600 sorties.
There are a lot of people who say that air power won the Gulf War. I have a little trouble with that, because air power is only one part of the land, sea, and air campaign. I am very proud of the contribution that we made, working together, flying side by side. And it wasn't only the United States Air Force, it was the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Islamic allies, our European allies, the French, the British, the Canadians. We really pulled together as a team. And I believe one of the reasons the war got over so quickly and with so few casualties is because of the lethality and flexibility of modern air power.
The U.S. naval buildup during the Gulf War was the largest such mobilization since World War II. 6 carrier battle groups massed in the Middle East, and the decks of those carriers roared non-stop. The sleek F-14 Tomcats were perhaps the best-known planes on board, and Marine Aviate Harriers were the other stars of the deck. But the Navy's key asset was actually the oldest, least glamorous plane on board, the venerable A-6. This late 50s design filled 3 crucial roles in the Gulf: tanking, electronic jamming, and long-range attack. Streaking in from the sea, A-6s were bold reminders of the deadly potential of power projection. A-6s have rolled off Grumman Aerospace Corporation assembly lines since the late 1950s. Over the years, the plane has gone from vacuum tubes to microcircuits. It was designed to fly in all weather conditions, both as a Marine close air support plane and a Navy long-range medium bomber. Flying complicated bombing missions requires a 2-man crew. As with F-111s, which fly similar missions, 2 aviators sit side by side, pilot on the left, bombardier navigator on the right. The first A-6A Intruder was delivered to the Navy in 1963. Soon, A-6s were being mass-produced and flying directly into frontline combat in Vietnam. During the Vietnam War, the Navy's new attack plane underwent years of brutal field testing. Today, the A-6 looks much the same as it did 30 years ago, but inside, it's a different airplane. Computer bombing systems and terrain-following radar have been added to give the A-6 true ground-hugging, day and night, all-weather capability. The A-6E's target recognition attack multi-sensor, or TRAM pod, lets the airplane drop laser-guided bombs with great precision. An important variant of the A-6 went into service in 1970. The EA-6B Prowler jams enemy radar and communications. It can also fire radar-seeking harm missiles at hostile positions. The KA-60 tanker plane is another A-6 spin-off. KA-6s refuel Navy planes and transfer gas from huge KC-10 tankers and deliver it to carriers below.
The A-6 has been fundamental to the Navy and its interdiction efforts, and again proved very valuable in this war. We used the A-6, like the 111 and the F-15Es, early in the war to attack targets such as airfields, communication sites, and then later we used them with precision munitions and also CBUs against troops in the field in Kuwait. So you're never in this war alone. You're always working together, one unit with another, and it really doesn't matter what country or what service you come from. You mix and match the forces so you have the most capable systems working together.
During the Gulf War, more than 150 coalition ships patrolled the waters near Iraq. More than 100 of these ships were part of the United States Navy. The 6 aircraft carriers in the Gulf region represented half the Navy's active carrier strength. Generally, each ship has about 85 planes on station.
The aircraft carrier is there, forward deployed, kind of an offensive punch, and it provides us with some very unique opportunities. The A-6 has got a unique mission, and one, that there's 2 aviators in it. We can deliver those smart weapons. We can carry an enormous amount of ordnance, and even know that there's Air Force aircraft that can carry more than we can. Because we're forward deployed and we can go to places that they can't, it gives us an opportunity to go out there and strike if we need to, and gives us that opportunity that it just can't be equaled with any other aircraft.
The Gulf War gave the Navy yet another opportunity to prove the worth of power projection. When Operation Desert Shield became Desert Storm, Navy and Marine pilots flew alongside the U.S. Air Force and the rest of the coalition air wing in strikes across Iraq and Kuwait. Few intruder crews had previous combat experience. In fact, most A-6 pilots were younger than their planes.
I'm gonna beep it up. Stand by for attack. Roger. Good attack symbology. Lasers on. I'm in auto. 9 miles. 1 minute to release.
The hard part about combat is that you don't know how you're going to react. When you see that situation, it's not a game anymore. And that can be very scary. When you get to that case where it's not a simulator, but it's actually a real missile, or it's not, you know, a simulation, it's actually AAA, you've got real bombs on you and people are trying to shoot at you to kill you, that's when you really wake up and say, hey, if I have not studied, if I have not prepared, you know, am I really going to be ready? You don't know until you get to that situation. And I think if you ask them deep down, truthfully, hey, did you have doubts? I'm sure every single guy had doubts. If they said they didn't have doubts, they're lying to you.
Stand by. Here they go. Good steering, man. Give me good steering. Easy. Here they go. I'm in designate. Designate. There it is. Easing the turn. Flashing. No impact point. You guys, steady. Everything's steady. It's gone. It's gone. Keep going. Pull it around left.
We will return in a moment to Weekday Wings on the Discovery Channel.
Aircraft carriers are floating cities where space is at a premium and all operations serve the needs of the flight deck. Deck activity is always frenzied, but never more so than during wartime, when pilots, sailors, and aircrew work exhausting shifts with little regard for the rise and fall of the sun. Carrier life is extremely regimented, and for good reason. Standing in the wrong place at the wrong time can be fatal. The noise on deck is deafening. Crewmen communicate with hand signals, intercoms, and headsets. Shirt colors quickly let you know who does what. Blue shirts keep planes from rolling off the flight deck. Red shirts handle bombs, rockets, and ammunition. Below the deck, they ready the weapons that pilots take into battle. An accident here can cripple a ship, so every action is checked and double-checked. In wartime, though, the pace can be exhausting. White and silver are the colors of safety men. Yellow shirts direct taxi traffic. Green shirts hook planes up to catapults. And everyone answers to the air boss, the chief controller of flight operations. No plane leaves the deck without the boss's approval. The air boss is a veteran flyer, and his word is law. In the handler's room, men move toy airplanes on a replica of the flight deck. This is the handler's table, nicknamed the Ouija board. The Ouija board tells the traffic, fuel, ordnance, and safety men the status of every plane on the ship. When toy planes are moved on the board, real planes are moved on the deck.
He's going to go on top because he's going to shoot later on.
Once in the air, pilots are handed over to the Carrier Air Traffic Control Center, a dark chamber in the bowels of the ship. Non-stop electronic communication keeps crews in touch with their mother ships. Combat missions can be taxing, but Navy pilots seem to unanimously agree that landing a plane on a carrier deck in bad weather is far more frightening.
I had one where we were manning up on the carrier. It was about 11:30 at night, very, very dark, raining cats and dogs, and there was a thunderstorm that for some reason was centered right on top of the ship, and somebody said on the radio, "Oh, it's not that bad, it's going to pass here in a second." And I'm looking around at these cats and dogs coming down to the flight deck thinking, what are we doing, you know? And I was scared. I mean, I was scared. And down to 2 miles in just pouring down rain, can't see the ship, can't see the ship. At a mile, there it is, land. And, I tell you what, it's an eye-opener. It's an eye-opener.
Typically, you'd come back from an overland mission, and your heart had been racing, you've got the adrenaline pumping, you get over the Gulf, and now it's an opportunity for you to relax. Well, especially if you're coming back there at night, well, you get about 50, 60 miles away from the ship, and that adrenaline starts pumping again. It's always difficult to get on board at night.
Flying at high subsonic speeds 200 feet above the desert floor might also look difficult, but it's not, thanks to terrain-following navigation systems. But during the Gulf War, intruder pilots flew at much higher levels than they were accustomed to, often above 10,000 feet. This helped them survive flak and surface-to-air missile attacks.
I'm sure every guy that's in this hangar can tell you there were times where he saw a missile coming up, and you don't know for sure if it's guiding on you or not. You're going to be able to pick up that missile visually, and you don't have a choice to take the chance of whether or not it's guiding. You're going to have to maneuver to defeat it. And the same thing with the AAA.
Other bombs going off. AAA there. AAA down below. Roger. Man, that's a lot of AAA down there now.
A good buddy of mine in VA-65 was hit with AAA one day when I was flying. We went and rendezvoused on his airplane and basically did an airborne checkout to see how much damage there was. There ended up being a hole in his wing about the size of a large chair that you could slide through. And we followed that airplane home and watched him land at a divert field. He unfortunately could not see the hole because it was near the outside portion of the wing and was blocked by some wing structure. He was talking about trying to lower his flaps and slats. We said, no, don't do that. So again, the danger was out there. No matter how easy people thought it was, you could run into danger.
Next up in the second package is about 10 minutes out. Time's away. Nothing on the log here, looking good. Oh yeah, right through him, man.
The number of airplanes shot down by the Iraqis was low, but it did happen.
I fly the A6E Intruder attack aircraft.
It was extremely difficult. Jeff was assigned to VA-35 at the time, and that was my previous squadron. I had flown some with Jeff. I knew everyone in the squadron, and just prior to our first mission into Iraq is when we had gotten word that some of those airplanes, the A6s off of the Saratoga, had actually been shot down. It was a difficult time. I could say that the night before that first mission, I laid awake in bed for quite a while, just thinking about exactly what was going on with Jeff, what were his thoughts, and what specifically was happening to him.
In future wars, pilot losses will be reduced by using weapons such as the Tomahawk land attack missile. 297 TLAMs were fired from battleships and submarines at the most heavily defended targets in Iraq. At least 2 were shot down, but the rest flew some 600 miles at heights as low as 100 feet before hitting targets smaller than a garage door. TLAMs are the metallic face of modern warfare. Intruders usually flew in groups of 4 and dropped both laser-guided bombs and unguided gravity bombs. Laser-guided bombs were the weapons of choice, but poor weather over Iraq often made it impossible for laser designators to lock onto targets. On poor weather days, A6Es dropped cluster bombs and other unguided munitions.
Okay, come in at 237 on the heading, Roger. Pickling just to make sure we got them off. Roger, right on the honeycomb that we were talking about going for. They're still dropping. Roger that. See how we do here. Oh, yeah. A little bit short, not bad. Nice picture. Yeah, nice picture, though. I'm going to leave it on there for a... Uh-oh. We got... Oh, fire. Right around 15 grand. Roger.
Aircraft in the break. Now land aircraft. Good launch. Good launch.
Intruders were also sent out to stop Iraqi naval vessels carrying anti-ship missiles and sea mines.
Those things are difficult because they're moving targets. It's not like a land target that you say, hey, I know where it is today, I know where it's going to be tomorrow. And because they're constantly moving, they're difficult to find and they're difficult to attack.
Towards the latter stages of the war, with the depth of the water, you'd get situations, you have a sunk boat out there somewhere in the Gulf, and you'd get a radar blip, and you'd go up there to investigate, expecting it to be a target, and here it's something that's already sunk and it's still sticking up above the water.
But not all A6s were carrier-based. Marine Corps pilots flew intruders and prowlers from land bases in Saudi Arabia. During the peak of Operation Desert Storm, 93,000 Marines, almost half the active duty force, were in the Gulf area. Marine intruders flew close air support and interdiction missions to protect the soldiers on the ground. The Marines brought 20 A6E intruders and 15 EA-6B prowlers to the Persian Gulf. Like their Navy counterparts, Marine A6 crews brought a variety of weapons to bear against hostile forces. But Marine pilots have closer ties to ground troops than other aviators. Their #1 priority is to do whatever they can to aid and protect Marines on the ground. But whether flying from land or sea, A6s proved that an old design is not necessarily an outdated design.
I think the reputation that we have, the capability that we have with this airplane is just superb. Everybody here in this hangar, though, would tell you that they'd like a replacement for the A6. It is old. It's been around since the early 1960s. And they've done a good job with improving it. You know, the internal systems, changing the software, giving us additional capability. But to have some things such as stealth technology, other technology to the internal components would only make us more survivable. However, given the package that we have to work with, it's an exceptional platform.
From January 17th to February 27th, Navy and Marine pilots flew some 26,000 combat and support sorties. After the war, the Secretary of Defense, Richard Cheney, said, in a crisis overseas, the first thing somebody asks is, where's the nearest aircraft carrier? Certainly, carrier mobility was a critical factor in August 1990, when the USS Eisenhower and the USS Independence raced to the Gulf after Iraq invaded Kuwait. The swift deployment of Navy carriers, combined with the prompt arrival of Air Force F-16s, might have been the reason Iraq did not continue its push into Saudi Arabia. Sea power also might have helped dissuade Iraq from carrying out its threats to use chemical weapons against soldiers and civilians. The United States let it be known that its carrier battle groups might be equipped with special weapons, the military's polite term for nuclear arms. It is unlikely that the coalition would have permitted the use of nuclear weapons in the Gulf. But if thousands of Arabs, Israelis, and Americans had died in a nerve gas attack, opinions could have changed. In any event, just the threat of nuclear arms seems to have had a chilling effect. Aircraft carriers let the United States quickly respond to crises. In the Gulf War, naval aviation played a crucial part in the coalition victory.
We will return in a moment to...
Wolf 3, have you shut down your engines?
That's a negative. I'm waiting to be chalked.
Roger. Push it a little bit to the right to clear the taxiway.
I think I'm pretty well clear right now.
With the height.
No. 15 hold.
And we're off. Check out the hotels on the right and the little harbor.
As far as it went, there is 2 cars blocking the runway. Blocking the taxiway, Mike.
There's 81 landing time at 10.
Thank you, Victor.
Roger. Dead-eye, final stop. Dead-eye, clear to land 3-4, wind is calm. Lead 3 green.
3 green.
3 green. 3 landed 34.
Okay, they are calling you on 15, sir. 42.
Yeah, it's got to be them right there. Here's a flare. Good. And a bundle of chaff. Ooh, good. I'm going to lock up the trailing F1 here.
Sure, I appreciate that.
Like Norm said. There, it looks like the F1s are climbing now. You see they're at 21,000 feet now. Let me see who this is. Uh-huh. There's the trailers right there.
Two Victor. Victor 15 is our Victor 3.
It's our Victor what?
3.
All right, copy. Let's go Victor 3.
So I'm going to push call 5.
Hey, check.
Falcon, thanks with you.
01 from Falcon 05 and Red 4, ready check.
Bang, loud and clear.
Loud and clear, over. Roger, we'll go Sahab 14, Sahab 14.
Spot 1-1 searching, posit.
Okay, break right, follow me. I'll take you to the target.
And right now we're on clean scope.
Reverse port. Visual with me. I am visual with the target. Okay. For the road junction.
Bang, Eagles left 9 o'clock, Shackle.
Target. Roger. I will tip in first, sir. Say again? I will tip before you. Okay, I'm coming now in. target south, 2 miles from Barrow Junction.
Stand by for the bend. Stand by, sir. Stand by. Too early. Negative. It is too early. Okay. Okay, check. 2 is tipping in now. Second. Tipping now. Tipping now. Stand underneath. Tipping in now. Okay, F-16 on top. Opposite heading. F-15.
Charlie Ho.
Sorry, F1.
Roger that. There's F4 is also higher.
Two, 7 miles, you correct, to the south.
Copy that. Offset right.
Okay, on Falcon, these are all descent 25,000, 25,000.
Okay.
Check high, Foxtrot 3, clean scope.
Leader, overdiving now, 29 descending.
How you got your top, please?
Thank you, sir.
And tag 1 said.
Check position. 10 now, find out, crossing out now, 090.
There you go. Boom.
Check high. 190.
Roger, 2 visual with 3 only.
Join up. Check your position. Just check your position, we can join up.
One stroke short. Up the knee.
Captain 2 still got 2 miles. 250. Roger, 2 is 270 from Bullseye to 130 nautical miles.
Captain 1, some last time, coming in again.
There's a visual on your left, 9 o'clock.
There's a CDU hit.
Copy lead.
There's hard.
Again on the clock.
10 o'clock level. Bullseye to 125 nautical miles. 126. Roger, we are in front of Phoenix now.
Hold on, keeper.
Keeper, go ahead.
On the red bubble. Don't go on.
Keeper, copy bubble.
Aircraft turning. Sorry? Keeper, still.
You turn the starboard. Don't have starboard. Roger, carry with the F1. Carry with the F1. Starboard, get the F1 now.
There he is.
Visual damage into opposite heading.
130.
Go ahead. Check. Alpha jet in your left, 9 o'clock. Range 2.
Affirmative.
Stand right. IP to our right, sir. Second. Your IP is to your right hand side now. Ma'am.
Boy, these guys are something.
Still there.
They're just crashing the radio.
Alpha.
Roger.
And I've got a hung story indication. You don't think the message ever got to that turf? Yeah, I don't think so. Okay, looks good. Tag 1 on the go, close, looks up. Okay, ready?
Ready.
37 on final, continue left edge. 199 off. Air 737 on final runway 3.5 traffic inside.
will return in a moment to Weekday Wings on the Discovery Channel. On the Discovery Channel.
Coming up, it's the ultimate do-it-yourself show. Learn the tricks of the trade. Professional home repair made easy on Gimme Shelter. Then go on the hunt. From chilly Alaska to sweltering Africa, nature's adventures continue on Wild Discovery.